Blessings.
This, to me, is a presentation that can do two things. The very minor one is for me to look back on this 8 years from now and be like, see, I told you guys. It's like maybe in the year 2000, you made a presentation that was the coming smartphone revolution, and everyone was like, what are you talking about? And then boom, the iPhone, and then Android, and I guess you had this coming. Obviously, this is for bullshit ego points no one cares about, but I really do want to get you folks that watch the videos to start early to wrap your heads around the near inevitability of what is going to happen. And I'm going to kind of describe to you sort of what's required for the robotics revolution. What is the robotics revolution? I'm going to get you just intellectually two things. One, prepared to expect this stuff and whatever decisions you need to make about what career you pick, what life trajectory, blah, blah, blah. But also have an understanding that when this starts happening, and traditional news media especially starts to, as they just, whatever earns them more money, start to scaremonger and do all this other stupid shit, you'll look back on this and be like, you know what, none of this is really crazy, wild, unpredictable stuff. It's more like inevitable rather than predictable. It's like when people were starting the internet was really growing, people said, like computer viruses, they're going to affect the whole world, they're going to kill us all, this is bad. And now we know that that was maybe one of the stupidest things people could have ever said, but you never can quite tell the difference between scaremongering and a legitimate concern and just pure, utter, unabashed stupidity. And I want to get you guys a little more familiar with the space. And look, I'm a dilettante in the space. Fuck if I know what I'm talking about, but I know a little bit more than the average news anchor. No, I take that back. 10 times more than the average news anchor about this kind of stuff. So if you kind of at least give these ideas some thought, you'll be better prepared for when cool revolutionary tech comes out in a few years, 5 years, 10 years. You'll be able to be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. If you really paid attention in the mid-90s, all of the internet and social media stuff that came out afterwards, you were like, well, yeah, that makes sense. Like when Facebook came out and it's like, look, it's just like a web page that connects people and you put up your pictures and they talk to each other. No one was like, oh my fucking God, this is a revolution. Really? But it ended up being a revolution because it connected so much of the whole world. But the thing about it was like, oh wow, there's no way they're going to be able to make this happen, right? So this is my spiel on robotics, because robotics is one of those things that all of us who grew up watching sci-fi movies, there's always fucking robots, right? Not always. Very often robots. And now we have the internet, we have AI, we have large language models, talk to computers like they're real, and we have life-saving medicine, super crazy DNA technology. But where the fuck are the robots? And I'm here to tell you, they're coming. They're coming, and they are inevitable. And no, they won't have laser guns and be skull-shaped and nuke Los Angeles. Sorry, John Connor. All right. 7 things to talk about. First, I'm going to talk about what universal robotics is. So I'm going to define it as universal robotics. Second, I'm going to talk about why it's such a big deal. Third, I'm going to talk about the primary 5 or 6 puzzle pieces that are required as technology, evolutions, as technology demonstrations, as technology capabilities to actually make universal robots. And one of the reasons we don't have robots walking around yet is because not all of these pieces have been really pushed to the fore and mature. Some of them have just been completely absent for the entire 2000 through 2010 through 2020. They just weren't around. Now they're really starting to come around, so it's very exciting to talk about. Number 4, I'll talk about how far off each puzzle piece is. Once they're all in the mix, robotics is essentially inevitable. Next, I'll talk about why digital-only artificial general intelligence, which we're nearing rapidly here with all the different large language models we have, why this development will speed things up considerably. And after that, I'm going to speculate a little bit about how universal robotics its arrival and its maturation, kind of like, like everyone has a smartphone kind of thing. Now we just take totally for granted. Like, you go to a village in Africa and like most people have a smartphone. You're like, huh. Well, there's no way that affects their lives. Like, no, it greatly affects their lives. It affects the whole world. When most people have access to universal robotics, it's going to change society in a couple of ways that are quite predictable, and in many other ways that are not. Obviously, I can't predict the unpredictable ways, but I will predict the predictable ones, so to give you a kind of lay of the land of what you can expect in the future. And lastly, I'll do some timeline predictions, which are very, very hazy, and potential stumbling blocks of how this technology can maybe not come to be used as soon as folks like me, psychotic futurists, would like. All right, so what is universal robotics? Other than, I think, the company name of the company that made the robots in Scott, what's that one movie with Will Smith? I, Robot, I think that was the name of the company. It was a very good name. I like the term universal robotics. There are many other names for it. To me, the way I define universal robot is a robot that can do nearly all or even all human jobs. And it's likely going to be a humanoid design because our world is designed for humans. Now, there's going to be tons and tons of robots that are made over the next 10 years and launched into their own production lines, and you're going to see them everywhere that aren't humanoid shaped. Because, like, you need a robot to, like, go into pipes and clean the pipes. It's not going to be a fucking human. How the hell do you fit a human being into an 8-foot-long pipe and the seal broke 8 feet in? This is not going to happen. But there's going to be a lot of humanoid robots, but also other shaped robots for sure. And when I say all or even all of human jobs, I'm talking about things like maybe especially physical things like cooking, welding, gardening. There are no robots that really do this en masse today. There are not even really demonstration robots, especially like in cooking. There's a little bit, but they really just only make one thing. Like there's an ice cream maker robot, but there's not a robot you can say like, hey, I want scrambled eggs and I want hash browns and I want that toast, but I want it like sort of medium and not super well. There's not a robot that can do all of those things yet. Universal robot will be able to do all of them, just as if you're talking to a human being. And because what human beings have, if you take a look at a person, just a human, maybe they're in front of you in their underwear, and you go, okay, which guy's the shipbuilder, which guy's the doctor, which guy is the carpenter, you almost will never be able to tell. I mean, outside of cultural cues, like the guy with the beard is definitely a shipbuilder. Like, nope, that's a doctor. Oh, God damn it. The nerdy guy, carpenter, fuck, I got it wrong again. But there's something really phenotypically different about humans in the modern world because we use machines so much. Like a shipbuilder doesn't really pick up a ship and put it here, or pick up a huge I-beam and put it here. There's machine assistance for all of that. So robots that are specialized or generalist robots that are not specialized, they could do a wide range of human tasks. Really, the difference between a robot being a carpenter and a welder or a doctor is going to be software. And we already know that software is exponentially increasing in power, and software updates are insanely easy to do. Like your universal robot would just plug himself into the wall, chill there for 2 hours, fill up his power levels, and get updates from Apple or Tesla or whoever makes the robots. And then he gets up off the wall and you're like, hey, did you download that ability to give me a massage? And he's like, sure did. Got every single massage technique from all of time. Ready? And you're like, dude, this is the greatest thing that's ever happened. Then he kills you. You guys know this. But in any case, it's software that's going to be different, but the physical architecture can be largely the same, modeled essentially on a human. What this means is that every one of these robots becomes a universal worker. It can do nearly any job. Nearly, because some jobs will be reserved almost exclusively for humans until later in the game when shit gets really whacked. I'll talk about that too. Lastly, a critical component of universal robotics. This is one of the things. Universal here means two things. Universal means it can do sort of all human jobs, or nearly all of them. But universal also means it has near universal access, right? Your smartphone is universal because it can do anything an app can do, which is a ton of shit. It can play music. It can do talk to type. You can watch videos on it. I mean, it works as a GPS. I mean, all of these things used to be individual things. I mean, you bought a radio, then you bought, a GPS tracker, and you bought a list. Now it's just one device, right? So a part of universality of cell phones is that they're everywhere because they're fucking cheap. Like if just the rich guy had a smartphone, it'd be like, yeah, that's not really universal, right? It can do cool stuff, but where the fuck are the rest of them? When the fuck are the rest of us going to get it? So for me, one of the definitions of universal robotics, and when we kind of cleared that threshold or getting close to it, is when it's priced at a similar time price as modern high-end iPhone, or in that same order of magnitude. So for example, as soon as universal robots, like a humanoid robot that can do most of the tasks, can be purchased and operated over the course of its lifespan for under $1,000 a month, they're going to begin to spread to nearly all parts of society, because now you have a universal worker that only costs $1,000 a month. That's $12,000 a year. That's below the United States minimum wage. That's really, really cool. And a lot of people who are currently sitting on their hands and waiting for people to fucking read their ads in the paper because nobody fucking... Exile. We're at year on year in the United States and a lot of the world, employment deficits. It's the opposite of unemployment. There are hundreds of thousands of jobs every month that just go literally unfilled and thus undone because there's no one to do them. So as soon as a robot costs like $1,000 a month, oh my fucking God, Chipotle, Subway, all the restaurants, gas station, etc., you're going to see robots everywhere because it makes sense. Now, eventually, my prediction is that the price may approach something like $100 a month. Then nearly all humans will have direct help with almost everything they need. And I'll get to the implications of that in a bit, but they're really fucking whack. And remember, something I think it may, if you are sort of a more consistent channel viewer, this futurism bullshit that I talked about every now and again, remember one thing, I don't want to be pedantic, remember this. I highly recommend you keep one thing in mind for all futurism type of shit. It is the following idea. And the idea is that things you take for granted completely today were in yesteryear at some point exotic and expensive. And at some point before that, barely imaginable. And at some point before that, just nonsense, magic, psychopathy, where you're like, dude, no one's going to be that rich. Are you out of your fucking mind? So when I say that in the year 2035, 2038, most people will have multiple robots at their beck and call to do everything they need, it sounds like nonsense. But right now, you may be nodding along, watching this on your phone and be like, that's nonsense. While you're streaming gigabytes of digital content per minute for a nominal price from everywhere in the world, and you're connected to the rest of humanity and a huge fraction of all human knowledge. What the fuck? Tell someone in the 50s that, they'd be like, you're a fucking idiot, man. That's like going to happen in the year 3000 or some shit. It's not going to happen. Well, when did that happen? 2008? 2006? Something like that? Wild. So this seems wild to us now, but I will try to demonstrate that it is much more inevitable than it is crazy. And just like with cell phones, competition and innovation will drive this revolution like crazy. It's not just a matter of, oh, we got pretty cool robots and that's it. That's the new life. It's the robots are going to be getting better and better and better and better at every conceivable part of the task. Why? Well, Mike the Capitalist coming out because people like Elon Musk, people like Sam Altman, and all the people that make corporations work, they want better for humanity, which is awesome. But also a lot of these folks, maybe not these folks specifically, but the rest of the people that work under them, they're greedy as fuck. They want more and more and more money. And the only way they're going to get more money out of you in a civilized world where you rationally exchange money for value is they're going to have to make the robots fucking good. Okay? There's a reason that Apple engineers spend an inordinate amount of time and a ton of years off their lives trying to make the phone a little bit smaller, a little bit better display, a little bit better sound, works with the headphones better. It's because if you don't make it better, somebody else will. And then all of a sudden people are buying the Samsung Galaxy and everyone forgot about the fucking iPhone. Competition and innovation are going to make this shit so fucking crazy, and they're going to do it fast. So, why is this such a big deal? I'll give you at least one story for that. And it's a bigger deal in about 100,000 other ways that I'll talk about shortly when we're talking about the implications of what this revolution could unfold for us. Even radical artificial general intelligence, even artificial superintelligence, with no embodiment, that means it has no body to operate. It lives inside of your fucking PC or in front of, it lives inside of a server room in Montana that OpenAI operates. And it just APIs to your computer, but it doesn't leave the computer, can't physically alter anything in the world. That AGI with no embodiment is super limited because of the fact that so many things occur in the physical world. For example, like, okay, we have AGI. Let's say it's 2029, the predicted year on average now. Ray Kurzweil did this in 1990. He's smarter than the rest of us. Now, most computer scientists and folks like that say, yeah, 2029 looks like about an average time where artificial general intelligence will be surpassed and start to become artificial superintelligence. Okay, that means a computer can think of anything you can think of, or not you specifically, but can think like a human and do all kinds of human tasks.
I don't feel good about
That's going to be fucking dope, because office tasks are now just tell a computer to do it. It just doesn't. You may be a boss now of 10 computers. That one of them is in charge of your marketing, one's in charge of your branding, one is in charge of, helping, take the uploaded files from your computer and edit them and all this other stuff. Whatever it is you do for a living, office work is now, with arrival of AGI, I don't want to say a solved problem, but like a plug and play, like in and out. For example, if you have a headache, you just buy Tylenol, you take it, and the headache goes away. If you have an office job that needs to be done, you just talk to AGI and it gets it done. It's crazy. It's coming, right? And that's a huge, huge deal. However, if we have this on your computer, these office machines that can do all the office work, that's amazing. However, I'm still cooking my own food. Fuck that. I'm still folding my own fucking laundry. You guys, how do I put this in a way that isn't a cocksucker move? I've been very successful in my life so far. Very fortunate. Money's not a problem. I still fold my own laundry. You say, dude, Dr. Mike, you got millions and shit, right? Yeah. Hire someone to do it. Where? Where the fuck are we? We live in Metro Detroit. There's nobody around. Everyone's already gainfully employed. We don't even have employees to go to I could go to Chipotle. It's closed half the time. There's not enough high school kids to run it. There's just no one for me to hire.
You killed.
My wife already has a job. I am folding my own fucking laundry. Now, is that insulting? No, I like folding my own laundry. It's like a kind of meditative thing. It's a peaceful thing, but like, you guys probably all have slightly better marginal uses of your time than folding your laundry and washing your dishes and all that fucking stupid shit. I'm doing that all by myself at this point. What the fuck, right? Shipbuilding takes 10 times as long as it should, because every year in the United States, there's just not enough shipbuilders. How many people do you know go into shipbuilding? By the way, if you want to go into shipbuilding, you can get an internship, an apprenticeship, where they teach you how to be a ship welder. They pay you money. An amazing wage, totally covers living expenses. You can save a bunch of money too and have a great life just to learn how to shipbuild. And then eventually when you learn, they can give you even more money to do shipbuilding. But so few people want that kind of work. It's tough work. It's not for everyone. And there's just not that many people. Someone's like, hey, you can work in the social media department of a clothing store. You sit in an air-conditioned office for 6 hours at a time. You just talk to your friends. You post, you share, you do some color grading. And it's really fun. And then you get tons of money. Or you can go into fucking Louisiana and have to fucking live down there and build ships and rappel up and down a fucking 80-knot winds and all this fucking bullshit. You have a welder. Some people, manly motherfuckers, and while I'm being honest, shitload of lesbians, love that kind of work. But there's just not enough people to do that. And everyone else is doing all kinds of other bullshit. We're getting so wealthy, and this is an amazing thing as a society, that the demand, that is, you have money and you're ready and able and willing to pay for services, is doing this. And the supply of labor is doing this because there's just not enough people, right? Plain and simple. So shipbuilding takes 10 times as long as it needs to because there's just no fucking people around. In the real world, there are other challenges. I'm still aging. I don't have cool body composition drugs to take. I don't have cool nootropics to take because nobody's working that because there's not enough fucking people around. And this is physical stuff in the real world. Cool. We need robots mixing beakers and shit. We need robots putting in samples. We need robots injecting rats with shit like that. There's just not enough people to do this. So, in essence, artificial general intelligence, some of its biggest impacts must also be real physical world impacts. I think Peter Thiel or somebody else kind of wrote this blog post a while back called, like, we wanted flying cars or some shit like that. It was like, we wanted like trips to Mars and flying cars, but we got 140 characters instead. It was like Twitter came first. The hilarious irony of that is all of the data that social media interactions have created have been mined by companies like OpenAI. And now we have computers that understand and think and talk like people. And now they're going to build us flying cars. However, we still haven't got flying cars, right? And so for AGI, artificial general intelligence, to deliver on its full promise, man, we need some goddamn robot bodies for it to act in the world. And then really cool shit happens. Now, as far as I can tell, there are 6 primary puzzle pieces for universal robotics. One is artificial general intelligence. I mean, the robot needs to be smart, right? Otherwise, when you're like, hey, can you do the dishes? It's like, do not understand command. You're like, okay, great. That thing sucks. Next is motor control. It's got to be able to move around and take dishes and put them from here to there. Obvious. Another one is energy systems. Up until recently, this wasn't a thing. So you need a battery, and I'll get to a more technical discussion in just a sec. Like, you need to move the fucking robot around. And it needs to be able to move its limbs, and it needs to be able to not run out of charge every 30 seconds. Another one is skins. This one is a very low tier. We can have nearly full-blown universal robotics without robots having any skins whatsoever. If it just looks like the Tesla bot, like a clank piece of metal machinery, it's going to be able to do your laundry and mow your lawn just fine. Now, if you want a different kind of interaction with robots, I'll be getting to that in just a second. You know what I'm talking about. It's not just sex, but also sex. Then skins are important. And especially when you have robots in a bunch of different contexts, like let's say Delta Airlines wants to hire some robots to do front counter work because they just don't have enough humans to do the job. Well, all of a sudden, you can talk to a thing that looks like a tin can, right? But Delta Airlines might be like, hey, OpenAI, thanks for making all these robots. Can you make any that like kind of look like people? And I know there's an uncanny valley situation, but kids are scared of these things. Can you make a robot look like a panda or something? And they're going to be like, well, yeah, well, sure, shit, look into that. The consumer demand for skins is going to be the big thing. It's not a mandatory thing, but it's going to be a thing. And also just quite frankly, having relationships with your robots and, doing the sex with them. Yeah, the Tesla robot doesn't exactly get me going. So we need something that looks like a human being in order to get that part. Small part, but nonetheless worth mentioning. The fifth component that's necessary is human vetting. Humans have to vet these robots. You can't just put robots out in the wild and be like, I gave my the dog to dry and it ripped the dog into pieces by accident. Oops, that's not a non-starter. So humans have to vet these robots. Humans have to feel safe. They have to trust the robots, and there has to be just ungodly number of hours of robots, either completely or nearly accident-free, for people to be like, okay, fine. And less people, because a lot of people want them anyway. They know humans are way more dangerous than robots by a long shot, but governments, regulatory agencies of various kinds, unless robots are very, very safe, very well vetted by humans, they're just not going to let you have one, plain and simple. And lastly, and majorly, is mass production. Because if you make a demonstration robot, that's really cool, but it costs like $16 million to make the fucking thing. And to make another one, it costs you also $16 million because you've never scaled anything. And so mass production has to be a big factor. So let's talk about all these and see what's going on a little bit more specifically. So first, AGI, or in this case, we call multimodal AGI. Multimodal artificial general intelligence means robots can touch, they can hear, they can see, they can talk, the whole fucking gamut. We'll save taste for another time. Maybe they should be able to taste if they're creating recipes for you, but maybe if the recipes are good enough and human vetted, then the robot doesn't need to taste them. It just follows the recipe specifically. What is required for multimodal AGI is a couple of things, at least three. Now, these are not complete lists, probably, I don't think. I'm not an expert in this, but they're well on their way. One is the logical architecture. Like the GPT somehow talks to you like it's a human because of the way it's built. So that is already kind of very close to a solved problem. It's not quite AGI, but it's accelerating so fast, we're not really worried about that. Another one is compute capacity. I mean, you're going to ask your robot to do a lot of local tasks. Like if you ask it something and you want an answer right away, it's not going to be able to, in all situations, ping the question back to the huge databases and get it back. So you're going to want a lot of local compute. And it takes a lot of compute to move a human-like body around in athletic ways, in smooth ways, and realize, look at a room and count and measure and track every single object and know what it is. You need a lot of local compute for that. So that's a thing that, NVIDIA is crushing that. Tons of other companies are crushing it. I'll talk a little bit about where we are with these things, but that's definitely a requirement. Another one is network throughput. Robots are going to network. They're going to network with each other. They're going to network with your home. They're going to network with your phone or whatever replaces the phone, like the headset, and then network back to their old company, in the robotics company, to get updates and stuff. The data volumes of universal robotics are going to be fucking massive. So network throughput has to be a thing. It's not going to be 5G. It's going to be like 8G or some shit like that. You guys get my drift. Next is the task of motor control. There are a couple of different kinds of motor control. There's gross motor control. Can you do this? Right? There's fine motor control. Can you do this? Can you move your hands really quickly? Can you show your fingers? There's gross motor control. Can you do this? Pick up a pen and do calligraphy. That's fine motor control. There is the question of servo mechanisms. So if a robot is going to give you a massage, it has to perceive how hard it's pushing and how hard the tissue is pushing back, and have a rapid feedback mechanism there, so that the robot's not like, I will give you a back massage, and it just takes its robot thumbs and pierces your spinal erector. You're like, fuck! It's like, is that deep tissue enough? You're like, actually, that feels great. So it can't have that. So force grading based on sensory feedback, really, really important. Not just for having sex with your robot, although it's really important there, but like robots doing surgery, robots cooking. For the love of God, you can't get a robot to pick up an egg if it just goes crunch. You're like, okay, well, clearly it moves around really well, but it can't sense anything. Bad news. And of course, for motor control, execution speed and reaction speed, especially reaction speed, is a big deal. A real world situation, right? A Chipotle human worker and 3 robot workers. Human worker bumps into the robot. If the robot's like, uh-oh, and like C-3PO, it just falls over, it's a non-starter. You need the robot to be able to real quick make the adjustments, and it's good to go. And this is tough stuff. This is stuff that until recently we really couldn't get a handle on. Next, energy systems is a couple of things to talk about there. One is local torque capacity. So like if you want a robot to mow your lawn, it had better be able to push with its legs hard enough to push a lawnmower. If it can't do that, bad news. You want a robot to take out the garbage, but it does this to the garbage container, insufficient force. Like, okay, well, I can do that. What the fuck? You guys built this thing wrong. So robots are going to have to be about as strong as humans. My argument is always, stronger is better, but at least on the scale of strength for humans, right? Even if it's just kind of a weak human, we're really getting started, right? You should be able to take a big bag of sugar from, the cart and put it into the grocery store shelf, or vice versa. If it can't do that, bad start. Next is the central power supply. That means how much total power does the robot have? And that's not just how much total force it can produce, but also ratioed to its weight. So you make a really, really strong robot that weighs 2 tons, but strength per ton is really shit. And then it doesn't accomplish a lot of really good things. If you want a robot to convincingly, easily, fluidly walk upstairs, walk down a hill, you're going to have a really good central power supply. And lastly, integrated with a power supply is the concept of energy charge. There's a total energy charge, which means how many hours of operation does your robot have with one charge. Another one is weight ratio. If the battery pack weighs 60 fucking pounds, it's a bad deal because the robot has to work most of its time to just offload the battery pack. But if the battery pack weighs 20 pounds, now we're in fucking business. Another one is recharge accessibility. If the robot can only be plugged into its custom charging station at home, very limited use case. Although tons of use cases, home and business, that's great. But if you want to take your robot on a camping trip to have it set up the tent and watch out for predators or some shit like that, you're going to need a better recharge accessibility. So that's a technological thing. And lastly is recharge speed. There are many use cases where if the robot takes all night to recharge, no big deal because it's fucking nighttime, right? But if you wake up and your husband's having a heart attack in the middle of the night and you're like, robot, help us get to the hospital. He's like, I am not charged yet. And it just goes back to sleep. You're like, okay, fucking Larry's going to die. Great, thank fucking God. So the faster you can recharge, the better, the more use cases there are, so on and so forth. How fast do humans recharge? Well, actually, humans technically need a whole night of sleep. If you don't give humans sleep for a while, they eventually break down. And they need food, and they need 3 meals a day, sleep, fluids, humans poop, all this other stuff. That's part of the recharging process. So if we can do at least better than that for a robot, we're really winning. If we can do 10x better than that, if for every 23 hours of operation, the robot needs 1 hour of charge time, holy shit, we're entering a totally new world. Skins. Real quick, so I'm not going to get too much into this, way outside of even my dilettante area, but things like facial expressions, sounds, and voices. I mean, there's totally use case for the Tesla robot, flat screen with even no visual display, no red eyes or anything, but it talks to you, but is it talking to me? It can definitely hear you and stuff like that, but I think there are a couple of demonstration robots currently that have some facial expressions they can do, and they're a little bit creepy, but that's pretty convincing. If that skips over the Uncanny Valley line, just for folks that don't know, Uncanny Valley is this really interesting thing in humanoid robotics and also animation and a couple other things where if something looks not remotely like a human, but it has human features, like a teddy bear, you're like, oh, it looks nice. If something looks exactly like a human, you're like, that's a human, it looks great. But if something looks really close to a human, but not quite, it looks eerie to most people. That's why it's called uncanny resemblance, uncanny valley. It's just like how you perceive a robot to look. You're like, great, better. Holy shit, that looks weird, and then back up to perfect, right? So if and when, not if, I take that back, when they break through uncanny valley with robotic architecture for faces and stuff, I mean, holy fucking shit, bro. You might not be able to tell who's a robot and who's a human just walking around the street, which would be a really, really awesome thing. Of course, literal skins, like if you're trying to do interesting things with your robot, I'll get to in a second, it has to feel at least somewhat like a human thing. Body shapes, you know what I'm saying? Like, are we talking about, if I'm trying to have sex with a robot, I don't want it shaped like the Tesla bot, believe it or not, that's not what I get my rocks off. And are we talking about developing some skin human feel tissues? So like, you know, like real talk, I'm getting a sex robot. I want it to look like humanoid, very humanoid. I want it to have skin that feels like human skin. I want its body shape to be of that of a female of reproductive age. And when I grab its robot ass, I want it to squish like a female's ass. If it's like, oh man, this robot looks so great, and I touch the ass and it's like blink, 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 I'm like, okay, that's a fucking toaster. That's not gonna work. Again, the skins thing, of all of the work that humans do, sex work, not super important in the grand scheme. So Universal Robotics can really arrive before any of the skin stuff. However, because the demand for interacting with robots in more and more human-like ways is going to be exponential, and the amount of money people will be willing to pay corporations to make them robots that look more and more human is going to be fucking constant and massive, is going to happen. It is not going to take very long. Next, human vetting. Really simple. Is it safe? And does it work collaboratively with humans? The real question here is how much vetting needs to occur for regulatory approval for mass use? The answer is a lot.
What do you need?
But when you have tens of thousands of test cases in factories and limited exploration, you know, robots conducting traffic, robots working in police stations, relatively high-risk environments anyway, once robots clear like 10 trillion hours of operation where only one time a robot hurt someone by total accident, you're going to have regulatory pressure to be like, you're ready to go into people's homes. And obviously there's another thing where people can sign a waiver and say, I want to test this robot at home. Company's not liable for anything fucked up that happens. I just need one now, goddammit. I don't care about safety. Some countries, some areas of the world will start doing that. Everyone gets jealous, and then the regulatory bodies have to pass it. Because if it's going to be getting to a point where if your country doesn't have robots in it, no one's going to want to be in your country anymore. Be like, but they all have, each person has 5 servants in Sweden with the 5 fucking robots. Why don't I get that? Like, oh, they're not so safe. Like, really? The Swedish people, they like danger or something? It's not going to pass. So it's also easy to log tons of hours. Robots will communicate in a network style. So when one robot learns something or how not to do something that's unsafe, every robot in that network will learn it. Every robot in the company will learn it. And so just like Tesla's driverless software development, it's easy to log a ton of hours. This is not going to be a thing where like, well, in order to make sure robots are safe, we're going to test them for 100 years. And to that point, you can test robots in a bunch of different scenarios in simulated environments. And NVIDIA is doing some of the early work where they simulated real physics pretty well in an open environment. They can do a ton of robot testing in environment, and that means they can test a single given robot software architecture like at 1,000 times normal speed. And because every time the architecture updates its ability to do something or learn something or move from the simulated physical world, every robot ever produced gets that software update and now knows that. The amount of wisdom you can develop in robot movement and thus making it safe and approved for human use is wild. So I do not anticipate this to be a problem. Lastly is the hurdle of mass production and, very related, mass maintenance. Robots will break. Who's going to fucking fix them? Robot can only fix so much of its own self. I'm sure there'll be plenty of their own fixing. But look, there's going to be a huge architecture around mass-producing robots, trading in older robots, software updates, hardware updates, and of course, when things go wrong, you're going to need robot maintenance. Huge, huge thing. That mass production thing is a big deal. I'll talk about a little bit how that hurdle can be surmounted. All right. Actually not too long of a conversation here. How far off is each of these puzzle pieces? Multimodal AGI is predicted to be 2029 is when they cross into ASI. It's on track. It's actually ahead of schedule, seemingly. If we now have multimodal AGI operating in Google and a couple other test platforms, you can look at YouTube videos of robots that can see, speak to humans, understand the physical world. They're all large language model based, so they know all the facts of history and all this other stuff. So that looks like to be a 5-year problem, if not less. Energy systems, real close. We're basically there, but energy systems are improving rapidly over time. So within that 5-year time horizon, energy systems should be well in to make robots that, at the very least, or very worst, take 8 hours of charging for every 16 hours of operation. And then they have a day-night cycle like humans, and then a lot of human tasks are knocked out of the park. Motor control of charging for every 16 hours. Gross motor control, the best company in the world that does that currently is Boston Dynamics. And fine motor control, there's Figure Robotics, and Tesla has some really cool stuff where they're manipulating really small objects. Within 5 years, I anticipate motor control to be essentially a solved problem in robotics. Most of it's solved already. Interestingly enough, we weren't able to say this even 5 years ago. Robots were insanely clumsy, but as happens with accelerated exponential technological innovation, this shit is impossible today, reasonable tomorrow, the day after it's mundane, and the day after that, I'm being facetious here, but a couple of years after that, it's like, oh yeah, man, this isn't even very impressive.
Dominus was a terrible
Skins,
being.
again, the note here is not essential for most tasks, but also not terribly technically difficult to develop because it's a surface level feature and a purely cosmetic feature. They already have a lot of skins they can make that maybe don't feel like human skin, but that's fucking close enough. And this isn't a technology sector that's going to develop much, in my view, until universal robotics is on its way to having, well, universal adoption. And then the use cases of like, well, we need robots that look like people, feel like people, etc., comes up. And then you're going to see a bunch of billion-dollar valuations for companies that specialize in making robot tissues that feel like humans, blah, 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 blah. This isn't going to take that long. And also, I did put a special note to this, or a little asterisk next to my notes. It's not essential for you true, what I would say, the real core of universal robotics, right? You don't need the Chipotle robot to have human fucking skin. If you're going to take it home later, you need it to have human skin. But that's a very small part of what robots bring as far as value to society. Human vetting. Human vetting is a thing that is already occurring. There is not a single robotics company whose probably number one concern isn't to keep the robots safe. If you're sitting on a $1 trillion robotics company and your robots hurt people, you're now sitting on a probably too low a value to give it a dollar amount, whatever you can sell the factories to for scrap value of company. Everyone in robotics industry knows this. The priority for human vetting and safety is insanely high. And that's one of these things that probably will develop just alongside as robots develop technologically. I don't think this is going to be a huge stumbling blocks unless regulatory stuff gets in the way. I'll talk about that at the end of this chat. Mass production is clearly not here because we don't even have fucking fully functional universal robots, although some folks are getting pretty close. This really only starts to speed up when the first few companies go into production with expensive robots. And once that occurs, because there's tons of rich people around the world, they start really buying up the robots, the price of the robots and competitor companies can offer falls drastically, and then mass production speeds up really quick. And as prices fall, it speeds up even faster. As the market demand and accessible market for robots goes up, the mass production is just a thing. It's inevitable. Now, is there going to be a mass production lag behind the development of universal robotics? Probably, but this isn't again, something that I find really fascinating, just to kind of share a personal feeling with you guys, or personal opinion with you guys, is people will comment in social media forums, like technological pessimists, for example, they'll be like, well, yeah, you can build these robots, but
Did you think our vengeance was done, Savior? Oh no, it has only begun.
I was happy to aid your rebellion, Utula, but not this. Poor corrupted creature. Freedom comes.
The High Priest. my love. You were too beautiful for this ugly world. I shall find you in the next. It's shameful.
The shadows are lifting at last. You shall be rewarded.
My poor Oyun.
Good tidings to you.
Greetings. Freedom comes to those.
Good tidings to you.
Godslayer. We've a vital mission for you. Stay vigilant.
You've found yourself. Bye. History repeats itself. Great. I'll see you there. Goodbye.
Exile. Be careful.
My mana is gone.
Approach, challenger. Many exiles have tested their skill. You will falter. Make your choice. A favorable result. Now you face another choice. Further commit to a more difficult challenge, or bulk. Ruin arrives suddenly. Your potential remains unrealized.
Now that you've had a glimpse of... Your operations are too important. Now that you've had a glimpse... The job never ends.
Got no more room in the morgue. Let's talk. See what we want.
That will slow me down. That would only slow me down. That would only slow me down.
How's the trail? Now that you've had a glimpse of the...
Greeting.
Yes?
Greetings.
Long day.
Hello. Cool winds. Greetings.
Greetings.
Tala, Exile. Though I know little of my natural, my regards.